for tea and networking. So I hope all of you would be enjoying tea at your home in a safe environment. Kindly ensure whatever device you are connected with us through for today's webinar, you should be able to access the chat window on the same. The chat window appears as a bubble icon on your device. So whatever device you are connected with, the chat window will appear as a bubble icon. You can write your name, affiliation, etc. in the chat window so that we know who all are there with us today. And you can also check the chat window. This chat window is going to be very important, I repeat, during the webinar, because any questions you have from the expert for today's session, you can keep writing the same on the chat window. At the end of your session, for a certificate of participation generation for today's session, we shall be sharing a feedback link with all our participants through this chat window. So, dear participants, whatever device you are connected with us through for today's webinar, I request you please stay with us for the entire duration and do not leave this webinar room till the time you earn your certificate of participation. The only task, the only effort we require from your side, the only help I would say we require from your side for the certificate of participation generation is that you will be required to fill a feedback form at the end of the session. The feedback form will contain simple details about you, your affiliating organization, etc. So please fill in the details carefully and submit the feedback form. Once you submit the feedback form within a matter of a few minutes, I would say maximum 2 to 5 minutes, your certificate of participation will be generated and it will be delivered in your inbox, whichever email ID you are going to share. So I request all of you, please either share, because we are using the Google API services to automate this process. So I request all of you kindly either share a a Gmail ID. If you do not have a Gmail ID, you can share your organization mail ID also, but please do not share a Yahoo mail ID. Second thing, till the time you don't receive your certificate of participation in your inbox, kindly do not leave this meeting room. If you leave this meeting room, the meeting room will be in a logged mode, so you will not be able to join back. So kindly do not leave this meeting room. And in case within 5 minutes you do not receive your certificate of participation in your inbox, we would be there to help you out. So you can share your mail ID with all the panelists and we shall surely help you out with your certificate of participation. But yes, the only effort that is required from your side is that you should fill and submit the feedback form at the end of the session. I can see participants from across the country have joined us today. Participants from Odisha, Chandigarh, across the country, everywhere have joined us. So I warmly welcome all the participants who have joined us today for this session, this live Vodcast webinar on copyrights, what, why, and how. Very soon, our experts for today's session would be joining us, and we shall be starting with this webinar as per schedule at 6 p.m. So a very warm welcome to all our participants who have joined us today for this webinar. We at Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management keep conducting these webinars every week, most in continuity, for knowledge generation purposes to enhance the knowledge of our participants on some technical topics, some topics of, I would say, current importance. So all of you are requested to join our webinars. Details of our upcoming webinars are available at our website. I'll be sharing the link of the same with all of you in the chat window. So you all can subscribe to that and you can keep receiving updates of our upcoming webinars. So a very warm welcome to all participants. We at Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management keep conducting a number of activities. But along with that, I would also like to introduce all our participants to another effort of ours, which is none other than International Journal of Information Technology, which is popularly known as BJIT. This is our journal, which is published by Springer Nature Singapore and is indexed in Scopus as well as UGC Care listed. Papers of these journals can be accessed from Springer Nature, our main website, only through subscription mode where the charges are somewhere around US dollars 6,000. But yes, The same papers of our journal are available to all our participants free of cost under the member area. In case you log in at bvicam.ac.in, you create a login for yourself with your member ID and password, which is completely free of cost. So as a special privilege to all our members, you can access the papers of our journal. You may refer to the papers of your interest. You may also contribute your original research publications to this journal, publication of which, if accepted, is free of cost. Further, if you find the journal useful, you may even recommend its subscription in the library of your institution. So, dear participants, the details of this particular journal of ours I have already shared with all of you in the chat window. So you can treat it as a test to check the chat window. I hope all of you are able to access the details of International Journal of Information Technology in the chat window. I have also shared the details of our upcoming webinars, the link at which the details of all our upcoming webinars are available. So you can subscribe to this link. You can register yourself with next webinars, which are of your choice, of your interest. So dear participants, I hope you all can access the same in the chat window. Kindly ensure whatever device you are connected with, you are able to access the chat window on the same, because the chat window is an important mechanism through which we shall be communicating throughout this webinar. I once again welcome all the participants who have joined us today for this wonderful webinar on copyrights, what, how, and why. And for the first time today, we will be conducting this webinar in live Vodcast mode. That means we shall have two experts who shall be inquiring for the benefit of our audience at large about copyrights, what, why, and how. And our experts are none other than Miss Anchita Sood from IPEM Group of Law Group of Institutions, and Mr. Damandev Sood, who is a well-acclaimed, well-known international resilience trainer. They shall be joining us anytime soon, and as per schedule, we shall be starting with the webinar sharp at 6 p.m. Meanwhile, it is time for tea and networking. So I request all the participants kindly ensure whatever devices you are connected with, you are able to access the chat window on the same. I welcome all our participants who have joined us today for another webinar under Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management. We keep conducting webinars on different technical topics which are currently trending, which are of importance currently. And every week we keep conducting them. So you can attend all our webinars. At the end of each webinar, you can earn a certificate of participation for yourself. So dear participants, kindly register for our upcoming webinars also. I hope you gain maximum knowledge about out of today's webinar, because today's webinar is again on a very important topic, which is none other than copyrights. So what, how, and when of copyrights is what we shall be understanding today. And today's webinar, unlike all our previous webinars, it is in a live broadcast mode. So our two expert speakers for today's webinar, Ms. Anchita Sood and Mr. Damandev Sood, shall be discussing with each other the intricacies of copyright. How can we file for copyright? What is the importance of copyright? How can it be achieved in today's webinar? So very soon, in a few minutes from now, Our experts shall be joining us, and as per schedule, we shall be starting with today's webinar sharp at 6 p.m. Meanwhile, I request all our attendees who have just joined us for today's webinar, kindly ensure whatever devices you are connected with us through for today's webinar. You can access the chat window on the same. The chat window is an important mechanism through which we shall be communicating during this webinar, dear participants. So kindly ensure that you can access the chat window, because for your certificate of participation towards the end of the session, that means once the podcast is over, we shall be sharing a feedback link with all our participants. You are required to fill in your details carefully into that link and submit the same so that your certificate of participation can be auto-generated from your details, and it can be mailed into your inbox in the mail ID that you share with us in a matter of few minutes. So it is important to generate your certificate of participation. The only prerequisite from your side is that you will have to fill and submit the feedback form. So to get the feedback link will not be shared on any other medium across except this WebEx room. This event, this live podcast will also be live streamed on our official YouTube channel, BVI Cam New Delhi. But that live streaming is only for knowledge dissemination purposes. So any of your friends, colleagues, etc., who plan to join through the YouTube link, even they will not get access to this feedback form link. So dear participants, kindly ensure that you can access the chat window so that you can access the feedback form link. One of our experts, Ms. Anchita Sood from IPAM Law Group of Institutions, is already with us here. Good evening, ma'am. Welcome to the webinar.
Good evening. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are perfectly audible.
Right.
And a very warm welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to extend my gratitude to the organizers for inviting me, and it is a great pleasure for me to be with you today.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's our pleasure to have you here with us. Ma'am, as per schedule, we shall be starting at 6 p.m. At the moment, our participants are joining in. So
All right.
we will be taking another 10 minutes so that all our participants and panelists join in before we start with the webinar.
All right. No issues.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So a very good evening and a very warm welcome to all the participants who have just joined us for today's webinar on copyright, what, why, and how. Dear participants, as against our previous webinars, today's webinar is in a live broadcast mode. So we have none other than two experts who shall be inquiring, who shall be discussing the issue of copyright for the benefit of our participants, our attendees at large. So at the end of today's webinar, I hope all of us would be more informed about what is copyright, why do we need copyright in today's form and in today's times, and what is the importance and how can we get this copyright. So it's a very important topic that our experts are going to discuss today. One of our experts, Ms. Anchita Sood from IPM Law Group of Institutions, has already joined us for today's webinar. Our second expert, Mr. Dhavandev Sood, well acclaimed, well known international resilience trainer, will soon be joining us for today's webinar. And as per schedule, we shall be starting with the webinar sharp at 6 p.m. Professor M.N. Huda, sir, Director, Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management, is already here with us. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the webinar.
Good evening, Dr. Ritika.
Good evening, sir. Sir, Anchita ma'am has joined us.
Great, and welcome to you, Anchita, here for the program.
Hello, sir. It
Hello.
is a great pleasure for me.
It's our pleasure and
Yes,
to have you for this program. And Mr. Daman will be joining soon because we were together for another meeting, and I have blocked out from one machine, but still that meeting is going on. So we'll be joining soon.
right. All right.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, sir. So a very good evening and a very warm welcome once again to all the participants who have just joined us for today's webinar on copyright, what, why, and how. Dear participants, as against our previous webinars, for the first time today, we are going to host this webinar in live broadcast mode. So we'll have two of our experts who shall be discussing this complete issue. Sir, there is a disturbance from your end. Please mute yourself. Thank you, sir. So, dear participants, for the first time today, we shall be having this webinar in the live podcast mode. I request all the participants, the rules remain the same. Kindly ensure whatever device you will be connected with us through for this webinar, kindly ensure you're able to access the chat window on the same. The chat window is an important mechanism through which we shall be communicating during this webinar. So any questions you have from the expert of today's session and you want to discuss, you can keep writing the same in the chat window. If it is not answered during the session, at the end of the session, I shall be facilitating you by asking the same with discussing the same with our experts. Secondly, to generate your certificate of participation, yes, Anchita ma'am, we shall be giving you the sharing rights. So just a minute, we will be making you the presenter so that you can test your system. Mani sir, I think we can give the sharing rights to Anchita ma'am so that
Next year. And meanwhile, writing name, your affiliation, your city in the chat window. You will also get versed with using the chat window because chat window is going to be the important mechanism for all of you to get information about the webinar as well as various important links and including the feedback link which will be used for the purpose of your certification. So keep writing your city, your name, your affiliation and your city and do networking. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And yes, dear participants, please follow that. Anchita, ma'am, you are the presenter now. So, ma'am, you can share and you can test your screen before we begin.
Yes, I just got the access. I'm just trying.
Yes, ma'am. Meanwhile, a very good evening and a very warm welcome to all the participants who have just joined us for today's webinar on copyrights, what, why, and how. Very soon, dear participants, within a few minutes from now, sharp at 6 p.m., we shall be starting with today's webinar. Meanwhile, it is time for tea and networking. I hope you all will be enjoying tea at your home in a safe environment. Please ensure whatever device you are connected with us through for today's webinar, you should be able to access the chat window on the same. Yes, Anchita ma'am, I can see, we can see your PPT. It is absolutely visible.
All right, it's great then. I'll be sharing it when we
Yes,
start
ma'am.
with the webinar.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. So, dear participants, another important information for you. This webinar shall also be live streamed on our official YouTube channel, BVI Cam New Delhi. But the live streaming shall only be for knowledge dissemination purposes. So, no feedback link will be shared with any participants who attend this webinar through the YouTube link BVI Cam New Delhi. So kindly ensure in case any of your friends, colleagues, participants plan to join this webinar later, kindly tell them the room is still open. They may join the WebEx room directly and earn a certificate of participation for themselves towards the end of this webinar. For the certificate of participation generation, I may again tell this to all our participants. There will be a feedback link which will be shared with all of you towards the end of the webinar once the live vodcast session is over. You will all be required to fill in those details into the feedback form and submit the same. Once you submit the same, your certificate of participation would be auto-generated and delivered in your inbox in a matter of few minutes, maximum 5 minutes. So please stay with us even after the session till the time you do not receive your certificate of participation in your inbox. If you do not receive your certificate of participation in your inbox, even 5 minutes after submitting your feedback form, we shall be there to help you out and you may write in your email ID and share it with all the panelists through the chat window. We shall surely help you with your certificate of participation. But one help we all require from your side to generate your certificate of participation is Please attentively attend this webinar, and at the end of the webinar, fill in the feedback form and submit the same so that your certificate of participation can be generated. So please, dear participants, the chat window appears as a bubble icon on your device. You can click on it. You can write in your affiliation, your details on the same, so that you can check the test your chat window, and you can receive all the messages that we share with you in the chat window. I have already shared the details of all our webinars. We at BVI CAM keep organizing different webinars on different technical topics of current importance every week in association with IEEE. So details of all our future webinars are available at our website. I have already shared the link of the same with all the participants in the chat window. You can click on the same, access the website, register for our upcoming webinars so that you are reminded well in time to attend the webinars. I once again welcome all our participants and our distinguished panelists who have joined us for today's webinar. Very soon, in a few minutes from now, we shall be starting with today's webinar. For the first time today, we will have this webinar in live vodcast mode with two experts, Ms. Anchita Sood from IPEM Law Group of Institutions and Mr. Damandev Sood, international, well-known, well-acclaimed international resilience trainer. And Sir is already there with us. Sir has joined us. Good evening, sir, and welcome to the webinar.
So, good evening once again, Mr. Daman.
Sir, you are on mute.
We were there and now we are here.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
So very good evening, all the participants. We are already ready for our webinar. Very soon, in a few minutes from now, we shall be starting with today's webinar on copyrights, what, why, and how. And with none other than two experts, Ms. Anchita Sood from IPEM Law Group of Institutions and Mr. Damandev Sood, who will be discussing this issue in live mode so that all of us can understand the intricacies of copyright and how to file it in the present times. I would say how to manage it in the present times. So I warmly welcome all the attendees. Once again, for the attendees who have just joined us, for information of all the attendees, I would repeat, dear attendees, please ensure whatever device you are connected with us through for today's webinar, you should be able to access the chat window on the same. The chat window is an important mechanism using which we shall be communicating through this webinar. So any questions you have from experts of today's session, which you think is not being covered, you can write it in the chat window. And at the end of the session, I shall be discussing them with our experts. Further, for your certificate of participation generation for today's session, a feedback link shall be shared with you at the end of this podcast, end of this session. You will be required to click on the same, fill in your details carefully and correctly without any mistakes, and submit the same. Once you submit the feedback form, your certificate of participation shall be auto-generated and delivered in your registered inbox within a matter of few minutes. It may be 2 to 5 minutes. So you can check your inbox and please do not leave this meeting room till the time you do not receive your certificate of participation. Once you receive your certificate of participation, you're most welcome to leave the meeting room. But in case, due to some technical glitches, you do not receive your certificate of participation and have already submitted the feedback form successfully, you can share your email ID with all the panelists in the chat window. We are there to help you out with your certificate of participation. So I once again welcome all dear panelists and all the attendees to today's webinar on copyrights, what, why, and how. Within a few minutes, we shall be starting with today's webinar in live vodcast mode. So today, instead of one expert, we have two experts with us, Ms. Anchita Sood and Mr. Damandev Sood, who have already joined us for today's session. A very warm welcome, and I once again welcome all dear attendees who have just joined us for today's webinar on copyrights, what, why, and how. Dear participants, for information dissemination among all participants at large. This webinar shall also be live streamed on our official YouTube channel, BVI Cam New Delhi. But the live streaming is only for knowledge dissemination purposes. So feedback link will not be shared with any participants who join this webinar from our official YouTube channel. So in case any of your friends, colleagues, etc. plan to join this webinar from our official YouTube channel, please request them to join the WebEx room. The room is still open. Professor Subramaniam Krishnamurthy sir has also joined us. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the webinar.
Good evening, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. So it is already 6. Sir, can we start with the webinar?
Yeah, Dr. Ritika, please start.
Thank you, sir. A very pleasant evening to all distinguished panelists and participants. Bharti Vidyapeeth's Institute of Computer Applications and Management BVI CAM, in association with Computational Intelligence Society CIS chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Computer Society chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Technology and Engineering Management Society TEMS chapter of IEEE Delhi section, System, Man and Cybernetics SMC Society, chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Communication Society of IEEE Delhi section, Consultants Network Affinity Group of IEEE Delhi section, Life Member Affinity Group of IEEE Delhi section, Inter-Society Relations IRS Standing Committee of IEEE Delhi section, Industry Relations and Special Interest Group on Humanitarian Technology, Site Standing Committee of IEEE Delhi section, with the Associations of Computer Society of India, CSI, Institute of Information Technology Professionals, IITP, ISTE Delhi section, and IETE Delhi Center. As technical collaborators, welcome you all to the webinar on copyrights, what, why, and how in a live vodcast mode. It is a moment of pride and honor to announce that we, with united hands, mark special contribution for the monumental occasion of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, an initiative to celebrate the 75 glorious independence years by organizing thought-provoking sessions for a better future. This webinar is an initiative for celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. The point of copyright law is not to give people absolute control over everything that they write. It is to compensate artists and authors for the work that they create. Government of India has produced National IPR policy under Creative India, Innovative India initiative. The name itself helps to understand the importance and purpose of the policy and securing intellectual properties. An all-encompassing IPR policy will promote a holistic and conducive ecosystem to catalyze the full potential of intellectual property for India's economic growth and socio-cultural development while protecting public interests. The webinar is aimed to increase awareness as the issue is important for all age groups. The webinar will be in conversation mode, having live discussion on a few important state-of-the-art use cases. The webinar will also discuss its all-round perspective, including the real-time issues and challenges. I will first take this opportunity to welcome amongst us our distinguished panelists for the day. We are privileged to have amongst us a galaxy of experts. I would first welcome Professor M.N. Huda Sir, Director, Bharti Vidyapeeth's Institute of Computer Applications and Management, and Vice Chairperson, IEEE Delhi Section, to address the participants with his welcome address.
Good evening, one and all. At the outset, let me welcome today's valued speaker, Ms. Anchita Sood, for such an interesting and innovative topic, that is copyright, why, how, and what. copyright is an important issue, and she has agreed to deliver her expertise with all of us. I'm grateful to her. Along with her, I am also thankful to my friend Mr. Damandev Sood, who very kindly agreed to moderate this session and present it in a live manner as a live broadcast. So grateful to you also, Mr. Daman. You have always been a great facilitator for this particular webinar as and when I need it. And I also take this opportunity to pay my thanks to all the participants from different parts of the country. I was going through the list and saw that from north to south and from east to west, almost all states of the country are being represented. So thank you so much to all the participants who keep on waiting for the program, keep on waiting for the Saturday 5:30 and then keep on joining it. In fact, this program was started in the backdrop of COVID in May 2020 to ensure that the kind of the negativity, the kind of the disruption which was happening all around us because of the COVID should be to some extent mitigated, if not in all way, by means of involving, engaging all of you for the purpose of learning. And that's how we keep on saying that keep learning despite disruptions all around us. And when we are organizing this webinar, again, the fourth wave of COVID is knocking our door, and we have so many of apprehensions that to which extent our activities will be sustainable in coming weeks, or to which extent it will again get disrupted. We are not sure. I think next 2-3 weeks will tell us. So this particular webinar was for a simple objective to keep all of you involved for some learning based activities, and this is 73rd of that series, which is under IEEE IETE BVI Camp weekly evening webinar series. Dear friends, the topics which has been chosen for today webinar, that is copyrights, what, why, and how, all of you know is very important. Dr. Ritika has already given you the background of this topic. Not only as a creator of something, that even as a user of something, we must know that if we are using something, to which extent we can take liberty and use it, and after how much of extent we need to take prior approval, prior permission from the people who have created it. So both IPR and copyright, both the concepts are important, and the great experts are here to enlighten us to which extent we can safeguard if we are a creator of any intellectual property or any copyright based content, or to which extent if we are user of that property or that content which someone else created, we should not violate the copyright or IPR law. So with that background, let's welcome our both the speakers. And this program, unlike many other webinars, will be in live mode, will be in conversation mode, to make it more interactive, to make it more lively. Questions which you have, please keep on posting in the chat window. If possible, few questions may be taken in between the webinar, but certainly towards the end of the webinar, all your questions will be taken up. There are many other webinars which have already been announced. Around 6 such webinars are already notified, and we'll keep on giving you the link. Those who have already gone the page, they know where the registration link is, and please register for those webinars. The purpose is again to keep you involved for the purpose of learning. I wish you a very happy stay, safe stay, healthy stay. Keep learning despite disruptions all around us, and keep yourself protected from so-called the new dastak of COVID wave 4. Wish you all the best. Thank you so much. Over to you, Dr. Nitika.
Thank you, sir. I will now welcome amongst us our expert speakers, Ms. Sanchita Sood and Mr. Damandev Sood, with an e-booking. Welcome to the session today, sir and ma'am. Mani sir, please share the e-booking. Technology takes a bit of time. So I think the sharing is taking a bit of time.
In the meanwhile, Dr. Ritika, can you provide me access to share my screen also, please?
Yes, sir. Just once that is done, we'll share the presentation rights with you.
To both of
Manish
us.
sir, can we share the e-bouquet and then we can make Anchita ma'am and Daman sir the presenters?
Thank
So
you
a
very
very
much.
warm welcome to you, Anchita ma'am and Daman sir. Welcome to today's
Thank
session.
you very much. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Ms. Anchita Sood graduated from Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University with a law degree and received a LLM in intellectual property from Amity University, Noida. She has participated in various moot court competitions and has done internships with learned advocates in the High Court of India, High Court of Delhi, and all district courts of Delhi, as well as National Human Rights Commission and Delhi State Legal Services Authority. She has also participated in international conferences organized by National Green Tribunal in 2016 and 2017, respectively. She is currently working as an assistant professor of law at IPEM Group of Institutions, Ghaziabad. She has also been one of the editors of the book titled Intellectual Property, The Contemporary Issues. She is also going to self-publish a book that she has written in co-authorship with Mr. Damandev Sood. She works on the principle of learn, analyze, then act, and also keep learning while acting, as law is an ever growing field and we learn something new every single day. With her bag full of accomplishments and experiences in diverse area of laws as well as life, she wishes to establish a leadership in the field of law by utilizing her capabilities, knowledge, and skills in the best possible way, because knowledge gets multiplied when it is shared. We feel honored to have you today amongst us, ma'am. A very warm welcome to you. We also feel honored to have amongst us our second expert for today, Mr. Damandev Sood. Damandev Sood, sir.
Dr. Ritika, just 2 lines would be enough for me.
Okay, sir, sure. Mr. Damandev Sood, sir, a well-known, acclaimed international resilience trainer and FBCS, FBCI, CBCI, life member of IEEE, member of IMA, ISO 22301, LA, and expert chairperson for Computer Society Chapter, IEEE Delhi Section, ambassador and international resilience trainer. His accomplishments are already well known and well acclaimed. I welcome you today to this session once again, sir. And
Thank you very much.
I now welcome our experts to this session, and I hand over the session to our experts to enlighten the house.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ritika.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
IEEE BVI Camp platform. Professor Oda, congratulations once again for crossing the century. While by IEEE BVI Camp standards, it's a very small number. We have crossed much, much more than, but in any match, a century is highly encouraging. So that's a great effort from your team that must be acknowledged and that must be appreciated. Great, thank you very much. So I'll not take much time, but I'll go to the questions straight away. Anchita, are you ready? Okay, the first one
Yes,
that
I'm
comes to
ready.
mind is, why is it important to know about IPs?
I would first like to request the permission to share my screen, and then only I'll begin with the session.
Sure, ma'am. Just a minute.
You
Ma'am,
can
you are
make
now
use
the
of
presenter.
slides. Yes, you can make use of slides. Good. So it seems at a time only one can be presenter, because you made me presenter. She lost that right.
Yes,
And now
sir.
you have made her presenter. I have lost the right.
Yes, sir.
All of
That
us
we
can be presenter, but only one presenter can share a screen at a time. That is the restriction.
All right,
Okay. So
that's the
that may
case.
be a challenge,
Not
but we'll
more than
manage.
one
Anyway,
presenter can share the screen at a time.
we will manage. No challenge.
Yeah,
Sir,
please,
we'll manage
please.
that.
Right. So, coming directly to the point, the IP, why IP is important and why we should know about IP. IP, as the term suggests, intellectual property. The term itself suggests that it is a property that comes out of the human intellect or human brain, basically. So, whenever we talk to someone and we ask what property do you have, what property do you possess, they generally give an answer that I have a phone, I have a watch, I have a car, I have a house. People normally talk about property as in the physical property, the tangible property. Nobody even bothers to talk about the property that we cannot touch or that we cannot perceive by our other senses. So property basically includes the legal rights that the person can have on a material. And for that sake, I would like to first define that property is of two kinds, that is the corporeal property and incorporeal property. So corporeal property is the one that we generally talk about, that is the tangible property. And intangible property is the incorporeal property, and IPR comes under the ambit of incorporeal property, which and we cannot touch or we cannot see it, but we know that we have something and we can have right over it, right? So intellectual property, coming towards intellectual property, I would say that human beings have been born with a beautiful thing that we call brain, and along with that our mother nature have provided us many physical and biological resources, and by using our human brain and these resources we can create a lot of things. Along with that, we have been gifted with some sense of ability of thinking and creativity and imagination. And when all we use all such abilities, we create something, and we human beings have been creating these things since ages. And but earlier the thing was that people were not aware and there was no restriction over such creations, and they normally one can earlier people would be using some of the contents or some the creative work of some other person without any restriction or without any payment. But as the society grew and with the development, we realized the importance and the value that the intellectual property can have. And intellectual property is basically just a creative work of a human intellect, and the commercial aspect also started playing a major role and a significant role in creations basically. So that's why we can say that studying intellectual property is very important, because today we are surrounded by intellectual property, like at every, like from a small tea, like from a small toothbrush to a big movie to a popular song, everywhere we have IPs, but we are still not aware about IPs. So that is why studying IP is a very important part.
Great. Thank you very much. Next question that comes to mind is, then what are the different types of IPs?
Right. Uh, right. So discussing about the type of IPs, I would say when there were no such protections, some of the international conventions came into play, but none of the convention was that which covered all the forms of IPs. So initially we had in the Paris Convention that protected the industrial property only, and then after some years came the Berne Convention that talked about the literary property only. So industrial property included patents, trademarks, industrial designs, layouts, and everything. So every kind of product or good that is related, that had some kind of industrial applicability. Whereas Berne Convention just talked about literary property and copyrights. When after some time came Rome Convention that somehow dealt with the neighboring rights of the performers and broadcasters. But after so many years, the international trade began and the GATT negotiations began, when people started thinking that with international trade, somehow we are trading in IPs only. Because if I am taking, like, if I am exporting my good from India to some another country, I am ultimately sending my goodwill with that product. And the international trade is not just a trade of goods, but it is a trade of IPs. So at that time, TRIPS agreement, that is trade related aspects of intellectual property rights, was signed, and WIPO was basically established, which now covers all these properties, that is the industrial property as well as the literary properties. patents deals with inventions, whereas trademarks deals with somehow with the organizations or companies having a particular logo. For example, if a Cadbury have a particular color for all its chocolates, so that color has been trademarked by the Cadburys. Along with that, we have copyrights that basically deals with the literary property and literary works, and that we will be covering in the coming slides. But before that, I would like to tell about the benefits of IP rights. Basically, innovative idea means it can become a means to earn profit. Innovative idea can be anything. It can be an invention, it can be a literary work, it can be a trademark, it can be designing a logo, and everything can now be, if we get registered, we register it, and if we use it properly, we can earn out of it. And that is why IP is important, and studying IP is important. The next benefit is export business opportunities. As I just told, international trade is something on which our economies are relying nowadays, because we cannot think about our nation or our economy to grow without international trade, and international trade includes IP rights and trade of IP as well. So that is it for this thing. We can move forward to the next question.
Thank you very much. What comes to mind then is next question. What are the different types of IPs? We were discussing this. Well, I'm ill-informed on this topic. That's why we are learning from you. I've heard something called GI. Would you like to say something about that? I couldn't understand that very well, actually.
Yes, GI is basically geographical indications. Geographical indication refers to a product that is basically arising from a particular geography. It cannot be from a particular factory or particular place, but to a particular geographical indication. For example, Banarasi sari. It is made in the whole of the Banaras, not to a particular store or not in a particular factory, but whole Banaras is famous for its saris. Similarly, we have Bengali rasgullas, and we have Kashmiri apples. So all these products are arriving are famous because of their geographical indications, and anyone from belonging from that geographical indication can ask for the rights and can use that product as for commercial benefit. So that is what geographical indication basically covers.
So that's also one type of IPs, is that
Yes,
right?
it is another type of IP.
Okay, and in those two categories, big baskets that you are showing,
Industrial
which one is
property.
it?
It
This is
will be
industrial.
covered under industrial.
Great, thank you.
Everything which is except literary work, that is which is not covered in literary work, will be covered under industrial property.
Okay, good.
That is just a broad classification.
All right. Okay, thank you. You have talked a little about the importance of copyrights, but if you have a little more to talk, we have time. If you can elaborate a little more, what is the importance of either having copyrights or knowing about copyrights and then appropriately using copyrights?
All right. So coming towards copyrights, copyright, as I told, it is a type of intellectual property which comes under the ambit of literary property. Berne Convention initially gave rights to the authors or to the creators who used to write something, or who basically created a work. So copyright is a legal term that is used to describe the rights that creators have over their literary or artistic works, and works covered by copyright can range from books to music to films to photographs to advertisements and all those things. So copyright jo hai, that is not defined under the Copyright Act of 1957, and the general connotation that we can have is a copyright means right to copy, which is available only to the author or to the creator, as the case may be. So if a person wants to copy something, only the right author or the creator will have the right to copy. Otherwise, if someone else is doing it, in general sense, we can say he is infringing the right of the creator or the author. But Copyright Act is a statute that is enacted by the legislature and governs the copyrighted materials, and it gives many rights. Like it is, I'll just change my slide. It gives a bundle of rights to the creators. It gives a right to reproduction, communication to public, adaptation, translation. For example, if Chetan Bhagat wrote wrote a novel that was Half Girlfriend, and there was a director who wanted to make a film out of it. So Chetan Bhagat had the right over that book. He was the author of that book, and he had the copyright over that book. So if the director wants to make a movie out of it, it will be covered under the topic adaptation of. It will be the adaptation of that novel basically. So if a director wants to adapt that novel and make a movie out of it, he have to take permission from the author, number one. Second, he have to give royalty to the author, that is Chetan Bhagat, and due credits. So that is all of these rights are given to the author as soon as he gets his work registered. Shall I move forward?
Yes, please.
Right. So copyright protection extend to the expression of ideas in a work, not to the ideas themselves. By this, I want to explain this because copyright protection can only be given to the expression of ideas and not to the idea itself. For example, if today I want to make a movie on women empowerment and I decide to write a script myself, and then I wrote that script, then there is some other person who wants to make a movie on same issue, so the idea would be same, that he also wants to make a movie on the women empowerment, but the expression of idea, how he writes a story, would be entirely different from my expression of idea, how, because his writing skills will be completely different from my writing skills. So copyright can be given only on the expression of ideas and not to the idea itself.
Okay.
Shall I move forward?
Yeah, please.
Now moving towards the subject matter of copyright. The section 2 clause Y of the Copyright Act defined works, because I told copyright can be given only on works, and to understand works, we have to understand what will be covered under the definition of work. So a work according to this section will means any literary, artistic, musical, dramatic work, or cinematograph film, or a sound recording. So if we have a work, if someone comes to us and says, I want a copyright over this, we have to first categorize what kind of work is it. Is it a literary work, or is it a musical work, or is it is artistic work, or a sound recording, or what kind of work it is. First we have to categorize the work in these following, in one of these then section 13 of the act says that the copyright will subsist only in those matter which will be original, or only those works in which the originality content is this. So if a literary work is not original, we cannot give copyright over it. If a dramatic, musical, artistic work is not original, no copyright can be given. But if a literary work is original, if today in this session I recite a poem that I wrote supposedly 2 days back, and if someone goes to another session and says that he or she has written it and says that work is his or his creation, then at that point of time, if I have registered my copyright first and I have taken the registration, then I can sue him for infringing my copyright, and he or she cannot use that work as his own. That is the sole idea of copyright. Then the test of originality, because the term what would be original is not defined in the Copyrights Act, and test of originality generally involves that the court generally consider whether the skill, labor, and knowledge of the author has been used in the creation of that work or not. So for example, if I as a teacher makes a question paper, sets a question paper for my students, At that point, my skill and labor and knowledge of that subject will be used in preparing that question paper. So I can take a copyright over that question paper, and then nobody else can use that question paper without my consent. It is that minute.
Mm-hmm.
Then in Eastern Book Company versus D.B. Modak, the Supreme Court held that it is a copyright is a right to stop others from exploiting the work without the consent or assent of the owner of the copyright. It presents basically a balance between the interests and right of the author and that a public in protecting the public domain, and to claim that the copyright and it protect as in a copyright statute. One of the key requirement is that originality, which contributes and has a direct nexus in maintaining the interest of author as well as the public in protecting the matters in public domain. Now, in this slide, I've just covered who will be the author in what kind of work. In a literary work, the person who writes that work will be the author. In a dramatic work, the person who...
Anshita, this seems to be very important to me.
Yeah.
So please go a bit slow on this one.
This one? All right.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
as I told, section 2 clause Y says what kind of works can be copyrighted. So it says a literary work can be copyrighted, and section 13 told us that it should be original. So who will have the copyright over that work? If a literary work is created, it is original, then the person who is creating that work will be the author and will have the right to file a copyright application. If there is a dramatic work, the person who has written that dramatic work will have the right to file the application for copyright. In case of musical works, the composer of that musical work will have the right to file the application for copyright. In case of musical works, there is always a debate that who will have the copyright, because if there is a only one song and there are many people who are involved in making that song. So if a musical work is there, the composer will be the author. The person who has written the lyrics of that person will have a different right, and all these rights are covered under the ambit of neighboring rights, which were given by basically which were given recognition by Rome Convention. So these the other rights, the person who writes the lyrics, the person who plays some instrument, the person who is basically managing the tempo, everyone will have some certain rights, but these rights will be covered under the ambit of neighboring rights, and the copyright will be with the composer of that musical work. In case of a cinematograph film, the producer of that film will have the copyright, and others will have the neighboring rights, and they will be given due credits for that film as well, but the copyright will be with the producer. In case of sound recording, it is with producer, and in case of photographs, it is with the photograph.
Okay. The last one.
In case of computer generated work like software or hardware, the person who has basically written that code will have the right.
Okay, so hold on here. Two questions come to mind here, Anshita.
Right.
With respect to cinematograph film, the producer holds the copyright, while the supporting staff have the neighboring rights. Roughly, this is what I'm understanding. While this is legal language difficult for me.
Right.
So is it the reason that at the end of the movies, we see that names scrolling down, that credits being given, while those are not even readable at all by the viewers? But it's just to comply with the rule. By the law, the producer has to give all the names, and it's a very long.
Yes, exactly. That is the reason why the all the credits are being given to all the person who were involved for the creation of that final product, because everyone cannot have a copyright over a single movie. The producer will have the right copyright, others will have neighboring rights, and they will get a share, be it in a form of royalty or in a form of the payment. Even the actors who are acting in a movie, they get a lump sum payment for that for acting in that movie, and after that, when the movie is released and as in the box office and it works, like if it works well, they earn well. If it doesn't work, they do not earn. So that is the thing with royalty.
Okay, thank you very much. One more from this slide, Anshita. And Professor Oda, I need to take your permission also. In this question, can I take the example of BVI can? This is difficult for
yes,
me
please.
as well as for Anshita, but I
Yes,
need your
yes.
permission. Can I take?
Yes, please.
So I'm
Yes, please.
creating a case on the fly, right? This case was not on my notes. The way she has explained this question comes to mind. So Anshita, assume you know BVI Camp is an institute, right? Assume we are studying computer science there. I am a student at BVI Camp. So this is the role I am playing. And in my course curriculum, I produce a piece of software. So you understand this is the last bullet on the slide that we are looking at.
Right.
I'm a student of BVI Camp, and during my curriculum, I'm supposed to produce a program. Assume a calculator I have produced.
Right.
Who owns the copyright on that?
You can file for a copyright and you can have copyright over that. Even during my final year, I wrote a dissertation on environmental laws, and I am planning to publish it, and I'll have copyright over it. If I am doing a work that is a creation of mine, I can have copyright over that. If had it been a case of employment where the an employee
I'm coming to
was
that. Hold on. I'm coming to that. First,
right.
let's complete this one, right? Let me play one role at a time.
Right.
This one, in case you're saying, but I'm still extending this a little bit for my understanding of, for the understanding of all the participants here.
Right.
That this setting is BVI Cam. I'm in BVI Cam Institute. The building is BVI Cam. Even the computer, the hardware software that I'm using is licensed to and owned by BVI Cam. I'm a student who's working on this and I've created some piece of software. Do I still hold the copyright with me, or is it the copyright with BVI Cam, the institute?
You can file for, the student can file for copyright and he can claim copyright over that creation because he is a student and he had paid fees for availing all the facilities from BVI.
Okay.
So
Okay.
he can file for a copyright.
Good. Thank you very much. And now I become a faculty at BVI Cam. So BVI Cam is my employer, right? And in I'm a faculty. I'm an employee of BVI Cam, and then I produce some piece of code. Who
So
owns the copyright on that?
at that point, your terms of employment will come into play. If at the time of your employment, when you were being hired, if BVI CAM clarifies that in case of your employment or during the tenure of your employment, if you create something, we will be the owner and we will have the copyright over it, then BVI CAM will be the author and will have copyright over that product.
Okay.
And if at the time of employment there was no such thing or no such discussion, then the faculty itself can file for copyright and have copyright over.
Good, good. Thank you very much. So I've not seen the BVI Cam employment letter, so I'll come out of that role. But I've seen from the corporate world, in the corporate world, we do write one clause somewhere, either in NDA or in the employment letter, that whatever I produce during course of my employment with the company will be the property of the company.
Will be the property. Exactly. There
We
are
do
clauses
sign that.
like that. Even some companies are like generous enough, they give a clause that we will have a joint authorship or joint ownership over that work, because so that the employee do not feel so bad about it.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. You can move on if you have more slides on this, otherwise we'll move to the
I'm
next
done
one.
with this one.
Okay, great. So once again, it's a difficult one. Again, Anshita, for yourself, and it was not in my notes. It has come to mind when you're talking. This session, like this is 73rd, as Professor Boda was saying. We record and we put it on BVACAM YouTube channel. Right? So this session is being recorded. That becomes a movie, if you want to call it movie, or that's a movie file. Right? So who owns the copyrights on this?
If their YouTube channel is accessible to like everyone, then
Yes, it
on
is.
YouTube they cannot say that they need copyright. Majorly BVI CAM will have the copyright over it. But if they by themselves are sharing with the recording with the public, then if someone else uses that recording and forward it for the sake of we can say knowledge sharing or for the sake of information sharing, then there is no violation in that.
So I can download and I can share with others.
Yes, you can download
If
and share
download
with
is allowed,
others.
I do not
Only
know.
for the yes, you cannot earn out of it basically. If you are in using it for with a, I'll be covering it in the next slide basically.
Okay, all
The
right, okay.
concept of fair dealing.
All right, hold on. Right, I'm sorry. So you're asking me to move on to the next question. But the next question was actually about the government of India. So if you want to go ahead sharing your slides, finish
We
that.
can first have a look on the steps taken by Government of India,
Right,
then we can
okay.
move on to the next.
So we have understood a little bit. I wouldn't say that I have followed everything that you have said, but a little clarification we have in mind about IP specifically. The day today we are talking about copyrights. We have discussed level, and I have attempted to pick up some roles in between, pick up extra questions. One question comes to mind is then what is government of India doing about copyrights, or is government of India doing anything at all? We know Dr. Ritika in the beginning had said that there is a national policy, but if you would like to talk a little more about that, good for
Right.
us.
I'll be So, yes, as Dr. Ritika told us about National Intellectual Property Rights Policy 2016, which give India basically a very good path for protection and enforcement of IPRs. And the government of India basically started this policy with the idea and with the view to promote creativity and innovations, as well as recognizing the value of IPR within the economic development and how and why IPR are so important for development of the economy. That's why government of India came up with this policy in 2016 to increase the creativity and basically establish an ecosystem that with the aim to have IP awareness and how it can be used for commercialization and how it can be enforced. So some of the objectives I'll be covering of this policy, that is objective 1 and objective 6, which are basically of our concern. Objective 1 of this policy basically states that uh, uh, is aimed for creating awareness of the economic, social and cultural benefits of IPR. The steps have been taken by the government, which include the inclusion of IPR as a subject in the school curriculum as well as in colleges. Then school children have been and teenagers, because they are the portion of society that constitute a major section who are using pirated content at a larger scale, be it pirated movies or films or games, because every teenager is somehow involved in piracy and they are not even aware about. So by introducing IPR as a subject in the curriculum, would at least give them a fair idea how they what is legally allowed and what is legally not allowed, and what can be the injury of such infringements on the rights of the owner as well as on the country. So that is the first objective, which is for creating the awareness, and IPR is being included in the curriculum. So
Okay.
this is not the case that government is not doing anything. Government is taking steps.
All
The
right.
second objective I would like to discuss is objective 6 of the uh, policy, which just I just got disconnected. Am I audible? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. So objective 6 of the policy talks about the public awareness and stringent steps that can be taken. So coordination between various agencies and providing direction, guidance to strengthening and enforcement of measures is being done. Examining of implications of jurisdictional difficulties and how IPs, like how crimes related to IPs can be traced. Digital piracy is somehow taking a like coming up now, and government is becoming aware about digital piracy and pirated copyright goods that are being dealt under TRIPS agreement. As I told, like Article 51 says that goods which are copies made without the consent of the right holder or person duly authorized by the right holder in the country of production, and which are made directly or indirectly from an article where the making of that copy would have constituted an infringement of copyright or related right under the law of country of importation, would be considered as pirated goods, pirated copyright goods, basically. So government is uh, initiating fact-finding studies and with the concerned stakeholders to find out the ways to get these pirated copyrighted goods in question and covered, and how to like stop this piracy. So government is taking steps for that as well. Another step that government has taken is they have established CIPAM, that is Cell for IPR Promotion and Management, which has been established by the government under the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So the major steps that CIPAM has taken is they have basically associated with FICCI, that is the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and created an IPR enforcement toolkit for police to aid police officials in dealing with IP crimes, because the one of the major objective of national IPR policy is to not only to like spread awareness, but it includes capacity building of judges, police, judiciary, basically judiciary, police and customs. So CIPAM has created a toolkit for police. CIPAM has been organizing various training sessions for judges who are basically dealing with trademark counterfeiting and copyright piracy cases. CIPAM has in cooperation with Film and Television Producers Guild of India and Viacom has launched a campaign against piracy through a series of videos, including animated videos. And many stars like Amitabh Bachchan and all have basically supported them in creating of such anti-piracy messages, which are being spread because their face will have a larger impact uh, on the target audience as compared to others. So they have also helped them. Along with that, IPR mascot has been established by India and titled as IP Nani. Nani is basically a term used for maternal grandmother in Hindi. So this mascot is being used to create awareness about IPRs amongst the children in an interesting manner, like by creating animated videos or something like some short movies with collaboration with European Union Intellectual Property Office. So these are some of the steps. There are many other things that government is being doing, but these are some of the steps that I thought I should discuss.
Great. Thank you very much. Dr. Ritika, we want to stop at 7, am I right?
Sure, sir, but the discussion is very interesting, and with the examples we are
Go till 7:15 also.
so yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. So to the audience, I now understand after having gone through this for about last 30 minutes with Anchita that I had underestimated the topic. It's a wide topic, serious discussions required about that. We have attempted a little bit today. We had attempted to discuss some real live cases also. And it seems we will have to come back to you with permission of Professor Hoda and BVIKM IEEE with maybe part 2 of the discussions when we take up the cases and do that. But because we have been given a little more time, Anchita, I hope you are okay, right? Comfortable?
Yes, I'm
To
fine.
go a
Yes,
little extra, 15 minutes? Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So I'll discuss, I want to pick up at least one case for sure. We'll see whether we can do 2, 3, and then if allowed, We'll come back with part 2 in a couple of weeks. So audience, stay with us. Please do not worry if you are not able to see many cases this evening. So we have discussed what, Anchita? We have understood why, also the importance of IPs, and within that copyright specifically that we had requested you to talk about this evening. If you can take some time to help us understand how also. I believe I'm an author, I'm an actor, I'm a dancer, I'm a producer, and have a piece of activity, what you call literary work, right? And I want to apply or claim copyrights on this. So the third portion that we had kept in the title in front of us, what, why, and how. So if you can spend some time to help us understand how do we apply or claim copyrights on any work that we have created. That'll be good.
Right. So to have a copyright, so before going directly to the infringement and to the exceptional part, I would first like to discuss how the application is filed.
Okay.
So as far as the filing and application is concerned, we have government registered government sites, websites for each of the IPR. Like if you have to file a copyright application, we have to go to www.copyrights.gov.in. If we want to file an application for patents, we have to go to www.patents.gov.in and so on. So
Okay.
if we go on to that website, we will have, like, it is not required that an advocate or a legal person can only file an application. A normal layman person can also file a copyright application just by going to the website, that is www.copyrights.gov.in. Then we have to register ourselves. Like if someone can give me a time, I can share my screen and visit the website and show you that as well. But it is not a very difficult process. We have to make a profile, we have to register ourselves, and then we can just log in. Then on the left side of the screen, we will find like many options, in which one of them, the topmost, is file a copyright application. We just have to click on it. Sorry.
Yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, we just have to click on it, and then once we click on it, a form will open, and then we have to fill all the particulars, which will ask us about the author, who the author is, his residential status, the date on which the work he's applying for was published, and the countries in which it was published, if there is some joint or joint owners authorship or not, who, if the author dies, who will be the legal heir, and everything. All these questions are basically asked in that form. We have to fill that the details in that form. Along with that, after filling that form, we have to pay the prescribed fee for a literary work, the normal in literary work in the form of like a written work. Basically the fees is rupees 500, but it changes, and the fee can be found on that website only. There is a chart where we can find, we have to first, as I told, whenever a work comes, we have to decide what category of work is it. So when we decide the category of work, during that application as well, the application form asks us what category of work is it. So for every category of work, a prescribed fee has been mentioned on the website. We have to fill the particulars, and we have to pay the prescribed fee. Along with that, we have to upload copies of the original work that we are filing the application for. And if someone else is filing copyright application on the author's behalf, then a power of attorney or authorization letter has to be filed along with has to be submitted along with the original.
Okay.
And once this application process sets in, after that 1 month period is basically taken, when the scrutiny on of the application is done, and it is being made available to the public for objections. If some objections arise, then the author is required to clear those objections by filing replies. And if none of the objection arises, then we will get copyright generally in 2-3 months.
Generally in
2-3 months.
2-3 months. It takes 2-3 months. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So quickly, what I capture, Anshita, is
Yeah.
that an individual can file application for copyright himself herself. I can
Yes.
do that myself. There is
Yes.
no need to go through an intermediary, an agent, or a lawyer or an advocate.
No. If you know the process, if you are like well versed with the process, you can do it yourself.
And it's easy. You are telling us that it's easy. The site is good.
Yes,
Generally,
the
you would
site
say
is
that
good.
we would have a negative impact about government sites, agencies, and systems that may not be very user friendly, may not be very easy,
No,
complicated.
in that sense, the copyrights site is very, very, very well maintained, I would say, and there are no such hindrances, I would say, that we will face, as we have that image in the mind that government sites are not very
Yes.
user friendly, but that is not the case with this site.
Okay. Also, you're telling us that even fee is not too high. It's as
Yes,
low as
exactly.
500 rupees and maybe increasing a little more, but it's not too high.
Exactly.
Also, you are telling us that if there are no objections, then one could receive a copyright authority letter, or what do we call it, in
ROC.
about 2 to 3 months. That's possible.
2 to 3 months. Yes.
Okay. Also, then finally, what comes to mind is I get a copyright on my work only if I apply for it. By default, I have no right on what I do or what I create.
Uh, won't say that you do not have rights, but if you are not registered, you will face some problems if you go to court and say I have created it first, because then you have to prove it, how you created, when you created it, and by since how long you have been using this thing and
Mhm.
everything. So that is a lengthy way. Still you can prove it that it was your work, but fighting that battle would be a difficult task. But it is
Okay.
better to register your work, because we are not the fees is not very high, and it is better to have something, have our rights, rather than just like leaving them.
Okay. But get some idea. I start writing it on paper. I'm still writing. So I cannot go to the copyright site and start my copyright claim on that. In between, someone else also starts writing, right? And he or she goes before me, gets it copyrighted, or we both are still writing, there could still be a conflict. We come to know that you are writing on the same topic and I'm writing on the same topic, or maybe the topic itself is exactly same. Is there a conflict between us, or we can live harmoniously?
You, as I told, the copyright will always be in the expression of idea and not the idea itself. So
Right.
if you and the other person are writing on a same topic, the idea might be same, but your expression, the way you write, would surely be different from the other person who is writing on a same topic. So there, I don't think there is any conflict between you and the other person.
But we may be using same terms also, or perhaps you have started writing something, you go to some meeting, you start talking about it, or you shouldn't be talking about your idea. Because when I listen to you, I may pick up something, even your terms and phrases that you had mentioned. You have not finished the work yet, you have not gone to the copyright yet, you have not got the copyright yet, and I start using the same terms, etc., also in my work. Then is there a conflict, or yes or no?
There might arise a conflict, but still, if you like verbally told someone about your idea, that if you, the idea is still in your mind and you have not written it and you have not registered it yet, so if
Okay.
you're sharing your idea with someone else and that person gets an idea ki, yes, I should use this idea as well and I should do my work, so his, I said, the test of originality will be, he will be using his own skills, his own labor and his own knowledge on that topic, on that subject, so he can get copyright over his work, whereas you can have a copyright over your work or your like the idea and your expression that you made after that from your idea.
Great. Thank you very much. So audience, we have got fairly nice idea, I would say. I'm repeating that I had underestimated the topic. What, why, and how also we have just finished. Anshita has explained this to us. It seems to be easy as well. I believe this is in line with the government's India, as of now, we are talking of India, government's dream of making India $5 trillion economy. It leads to innovation, it leads to protection of rights, and it leads to reducing the conflicts in life, which means we save time, money, effort, which can be once again utilized in some productive work. And this is how the country could be prospering. So according to me, this is why all IPRs, specifically within that, the copyrights, which is many times is said to be the least understood and most exploited IP. Out of the, how many do we have? 9 in all, Anchita? How many
Yes.
IPs in all? 9, right? Okay. So because we have been given extra time, can we go to one? Yes, Professor Oda wants to speak.
No, you can speak.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Shall we pick up the first case? We had committed to discuss live cases, real cases also. Shall we go ahead?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm reading this from my screen. Pawan is a member of IEEE. Why Pawan? Let's become real. Daman, I'm a member of IEEE, senior member of IEEE. So Daman is a member of IEEE on paid membership basis. I pay membership fee every year. So I'm a member, IEEE member on paid membership basis. My subscription includes access to the monthly magazines from IEEE. I receive this from IEEE with an option to read it online or download. And I download this, all the magazines that I receive, I download on my laptop. This is a real case. I do this. So the question that comes to mind for you is, what are my rights with respect to the usage of this magazine, storing as well as sharing? What rights do I have? Case
Uh,
is clear that I'm a paid member of IEEE and I receive this with an option to either read online or download, and I do download.
Just a minute. I wanted to make just a small announcement. Dear participants, the speakers have been very kind enough to share a coffee book, CIO coffee table book, which has been uploaded at the portal, link of which will be shared at the end of this webinar along with the link of the feedback. And please note, the book will also be available on the portal only till today 10 p.m. So all those who are interested, please go on the link, download the book, because after 10 p.m. from the website, the link and the uploading will be disabled for known reasons, that those people who have not attended this webinar should not download and misuse it,
It's
right?
fair.
So thank you so much. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Professor. Yes, Sanchita, you can go ahead. If you want, I can repeat the case.
no, am I audible?
Yes.
Right. So, to deal with this case, I would first say we should know what is fair dealing and what are the cases, what are the exceptions to the infringement of copyrights. Because everyone would be in a dilemma that if we are using it, whether we are infringing someone else's copyright or not. So that is the main question, that is the main concern that arises. So to like clear that thing, we should first understand the doctrine of fair dealing in copyright law. The doctrine of fair dealing basically allows a person to use or produce copyrighted protected material of any individual or organization under certain circumstances that are mentioned under the act. So globally, the concept of fair dealing was very prevalent, but in India, the scope of this fair dealing is very limited, and it is still growing, still a growing concept.
Mhm.
Fair dealing uh, refers to the promotion or for creativity through promotional reuse of copyrighted work protected word under the specific conditions. Section 52 of the act basically talks about the exceptions where doing of an act would not constitute an infringement. So with the rise of digital era and sharing of copyrighted work without the boundaries on social media and OTT platforms, the legislature basically inserted clauses in section 52 in 1994 and 1999 via amendments, or expressly basically setting out the boundaries of fair dealing and what will amount to fair dealing and how far the ambit of fair dealing can be construed. So, the basic motive behind this doctrine is to ensure the prevention of stringent copyrighted work resulting in a hindrance in the growth of creativity among the world. It basically aims to balance a fairness between the use of the work and the rights of the holder. Because in a welfare society, we cannot just give all the rights to one person and take away all the rights from other people. We have to think about everyone, so it acts as a balance between both the society and the rights of the authors. So section 52 clause, subsection 1 clause a talks about, says that if a fair dealing or a private use or a criticism or reporting is being done of any creative work, any work that I defined under section 2 clause y, that is a literary work or a dramatic work or a musical work or artistic work, a cinematographic film or a sound recording, if of if the if these works are being used fairly or for a private or a personal use, for research purpose, for criticism or for review or for reporting, then by a person, then the act of doing so will not amount to infringement and will not attract the punishments. Then if making of copies and of a computer program, then observing a computer program, studying it, testing it is being done by a person, then it will not amount to infringement as per the Copyright Act, and it will not attract any penal provision. Making copies, then reproduction of a judicial proceedings. During judicial proceedings, judges normally uh, uh, give dictations and they dictate basically the judgments. And if someone is rewriting the judicial proceedings or noting it down, then it will not amount to infringement as per the copyright. Accordingly, reproduction of a legislature or reproduction or obtaining a certified copy, whenever we go to court and we want a file, a copy of some document, we request the court to give a certified copy. And if we are getting a copy of that document, a certified copy of that document from the court itself, it will not amount, and using it for our own case, then also it will not amount to infringement of copyright. Similarly, there are many provisions that are mentioned under under different all the clauses of section 52, which clearly states that if any of these acts are being done by any person, then it will not amount to infringement, and no penal provision or no punishment can be given for infringement of copyright of the author. So in this case, when you are downloading a document from the I would say the website, and you're a paid member, so I would say you're not infringing any of the rights, because one, you have the right, and at that point doctrine of exhaustion comes into play. Doctrine of exhaustion is basically also known as doctrine of first sale, which talks about, which says, if I am the author and I am I am I'm giving my work into circulation, and once it comes into circulation, then the person who purchases it, the buyer, have the right to use it in whatever manner he wants to use it. So I cannot get profit, I cannot gain profit from every from every step that in which my work is being used. Once I put it into the market, into the circulation, it comes into circulation, then any person who is buying it or who is getting it can use it in whatever manner he wants to use.
Great. Thank you very much. Quickly, because it was a long answer and there were so many clauses, etc. Right?
Right.
I'm confused. Give me in simple words if you can. In
Right.
this case, I'm a paid member of IEEE. I download the magazine, which I'm allowed to download, and I store it on my laptop. No challenge so far.
No challenge.
Then can I share it with others? I'm not
Yes, you
charging
can
anyone,
share
but
it
can I
with others.
share? I can share
Yes,
also.
yes, yes,
Can
you
I
can share it with
print
others.
it? Can I print it to read it? I want
Yes.
to read a printed material.
Yes, yes, you are allowed to print it as well, and you can share it with others for educational purposes as per section 52. And
That's a,
doctrine of exhaustion also comes into play in this
that's a
case.
great relief to me because I had been doing this for years and years, but I didn't realize whether I was making any mistakes. Dr. Ritika, do you want us to stop here so that we have some time for questions also? If there are any questions from the audience?
Yes, sir. There are too many questions from the audience.
Too many questions. Okay,
Yes.
good. So what we'll commit immediately is, please give us the list of the questions if we are not able to cover all here. We'll be happy to come back with the answers and then you can share with the audience.
Sure, sir. I think I'll take up a few questions which will in totality cover up the discussion that has gone today.
Okay,
A few questions which are going into a lot of depth. I think we can plan another session
good,
covering all those parts.
good.
So first, thank you so much. It has been wonderfully informative session. We have actually understood that what is importance of copyright. Now I'll take up a few questions from the audience. Uh, the first question is, how does copyright help fight plagiarism and unethical issues that the author community is facing nowadays?
Uh, can you please repeat the question?
Yes, sure. The question says, how does copyright help fight plagiarism and unethical issues of the author community?
Yes, plagiarism is one of the major issues that authors face nowadays uh, because of the because they lack originality. First of all, I would say, because people nowadays just want to copy things, and they cannot even go on and write everything cannot be original. We are living in a world where things are limited, where ideas are limited. But yes, copyright do fight with the issue of plagiarism, because if I am writing something, I get copyright over it. Then if the other person is using my content, it will and if I am putting my work in public domain on internet, and if someone else is using that work, and the major portion of that work without giving me due credits, or without giving following the citation exact citation thing, then the content will be if the flag check is done, it will be surely be covered under plagiarism, and the person will not be allowed to publish the same. So that's how copyrights are basically protecting the content of the real authors.
Absolutely
Can I
rightly
extend,
said.
Dr. Ritika, can I extend this to a little bit? Real
Yes,
case once again,
sure.
not real case, but it's fiction perhaps. So the movie Bhagwan, Amitabh Bachchan. I am Amitabh Bachchan. I'm sitting with Paresh Rawal, sitting in his cafe, in his shop, and my manuscript is left there. I forgot my manuscript there. It's
Right.
not going to copyright yet.
Yes.
Now Paresh Rawal picks up and claims that it's his book and he gets it published. And then I say, oh, but it was my work.
it
Conflict and
will
how do you
attract it will attract criminal laws basically, and will not be covered in IPR truly, because it will be a case of theft and not of copyright issues, or for that matter.
Okay, but perhaps I'm making it difficult for you. But Paresh Rawal has not stolen it. Amitabh
He
Bachchan forgot it there. He just got it. He did,
Yes,
perhaps he didn't even know that it was
he
my work. Someone
he
came in his cafe and forgot it there.
but he had that for a criminal, for a criminal proceeding to follow, we have to first satisfy the court that he had that intention. The guilty mind should be there. So if Paresh Rawal had not that guilty mind, he would not have published the book, and he would have waited for the actual author or owner to come and collect his book. But he had that guilty intention. He used that work for his own benefit, so it will attract penal provisions.
So if I become Paresh Rawal now for a second, it seems we are deviating from
Then you'll be
copyrights.
behind the
It may
bars.
be more ethical issue than copyrights issue.
Yes.
Even if I found it, I shouldn't have used it or misused
It is
it.
not.
Because it was
Yes,
not my purpose.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you. Dr. Ritika, back to you.
Thank you, sir. Next question, and I think this is a very important question which would be of interest to many of us. If we fill the copyright form for any publisher, do we still hold a copyright on that?
Sorry, if we fill up copyright form
for any publisher, like our work
Yes.
gets published by a particular publisher and we fill the copyright form. Now, do we still hold a copyright on that work?
No, that is what I told during the employment scenario that we discussed. If the employee is agreeing to the fact that whatever I will create, I will give my work to the employer and employer will be the sole owner. Similarly, if I have given my work to the producer, you said, right? So if I have given consent that I am giving my work to so and so person to publish it, if on that consent I have written on my behalf, if someone else is publishing it on my behalf, then I will have the copyright. But if I have given consent that yes, I am giving my my rights to this person and he can publish it, then the only publisher will have the copyright.
But in that case, I think there is another point to extend to this question. If now the publisher holds the copyright and tomorrow the work gets entangled in some unethical means, so at that moment, why do publishers get across very easily, laying the complete claim on that author? At that moment, only authors are penalized. So, how does the copyright have a play in this case?
It basically depends on the conditions. Why, like the question was, if I have given complete consent to the publisher that I am giving this work to you and you can utilize it in any way that you want, if that was the scenario, then obviously publisher will be the one who will be like questioned when such when some query arises or when something unethical happens. But if I am giving, like I am asking my publisher to publish something on my behalf, I am the author of a work, then obviously I will be called like for questioning if something else arises. Like if I
Absolutely.
am
Dr.
creating.
Ritika, I'll take a minute
Yes,
extra on this one. So while I've written only 2 books so far, third,
right.
fourth, fifth may be coming up this year. There are some people, I believe you and Professor Hoda also, and maybe many more in the audience who have written many more books than me. But my experience is that the publisher clearly told me that copyright would remain with me, and I was happy with that. And then
Yes,
I've been in touch with many publishers. Actually, all publishers are selling their services to me like this, that you would retain the copyright with you.
yes,
I'm
exactly. That
surprised that
happens.
how and when an author would have passed on the copyrights to publisher. How, when, and why. So it's not clear to me because I have experience of only 2 books and only one interaction with the publisher.
That may be the case. Just a second. That might be because that was what I was trying to say, because generally that is not the case. But the question was, if I give my consent to the
Yes.
publisher, then only publisher will be liable. Otherwise, normally publishers are the ones who are assisting the authors for publishing their works, because authors directly do not know how to publish their works and how to get like their work published.
Right.
So that is the case.
Good, good. Thank you very much. Back to you, Dr. Ritika.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Anchita ma'am. I think we'll have to end this discussion over here because otherwise the questions will keep coming and we'll have to spend the complete time on this. I'll now put an end to this discussion and I thank both of you today for this wonderful session. Many of our doubts on copyright, patent, IPR have been cleared with this session. So I would now request Professor M.N. Hoda sir to first present Anchita ma'am with a certificate for today's wonderful session.
So thank you so much. We will certainly come with the part 2 of this webinar because the topic is so interesting and touching to almost every common man, whether as a creator or maybe as a user. That this 1 hour or maybe 1 hour 15 minutes is not sufficient, but solid foundation has already been done for the part 2 of this webinar. So thank you so much. And this certificate is not for the purpose of certification, rather for the purpose of remembrance that you have been part of this lovely webinar of such an important topic. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjita ma'am. Sir, I now request you to kindly commemorate Daman sir's presence today.
Oh, great, great.
That's
Giving
not
any
required.
certificate to Mr. Daman is absolutely a different feel to me. So thank you so much, Mr. Daman, for having moderated it so nice.
Thank you very much. I'm happy.
None other than we also have small mementos to commemorate this important session today. So I will now request Huda sir to kindly share small mementos with Daman sir and ma'am.
And that is e-memento in
Yes, sir.
electronic time.
We are happy with that. Yes.
I hope my screen is not shared. Just a minute.
Who is Manish is sharing?
Sir, I am sharing, but with the mementos, just a minute.
Oh, yes.
So first, I'll request sir to present Anchita ma'am with this small e-memento to commemorate this important occasion today.
That memento is not visible to me.
Yes, sir. I am also checking on my second
I
device.
think you may stop sharing and again share it.
Just a minute.
Meanwhile, I will be sharing link to participants. So dear participants, in between the feedback link has been shared and also the link of the CIO coffee table book written on turning adversity into a strength has also been shared. Please note that the feedback link will be active till 8 p.m. maximum. And you cannot get certificate unless you fill the feedback form. So it is you who has to fill the feedback form, fill it up correctly, because the data will be captured from your feedback form for the purpose of generation of certificate. Entire process is automated. So if you commit a mistake, a wrong certificate will be generated and we can't be in a position to help you out. Second, the coffee book will be available on our portal, the link of which has been shared here. And this is available till 10 p.m. today. So all of you are requested to download it, after which it will be offloaded from there. And yes, the e-memento is here. So Miss Anchita, it's for you. And thank you so much for having delivered this talk so nicely. It was a very good
Thank you,
talk.
sir. It was my
And
pleasure.
great for my friend, Mr. Daman as well. Daman, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure having you again and again.
We must clap for the participants also. Without them, none of these activities will be
Oh, yes.
successful.
Oh, yes.
Yes, sir.
All of them, all of us can clap together.
Yeah, over to you, Dr. Deepika.
Thank you, sir. With this, we come an end to this wonderful session today. I thank all our distinguished panelists and participants who have continuously supported us through this webinar. A big thank you to all of you who have joined us on this auspicious day. And another big thank you to both our experts who have delivered such an informative session today that we have got to know so much about copyright, IPR, and the associated intricacies. So thank you so much, Daman sir, and thank you so much, Anchita ma'am. It was a wonderful session.
Professor Hoda,
Yes, please.
without your share, we cannot leave the session. I'm missing that.
नहीं वो आज के लिए शेयर ये है कि कोविड की 4th वेव हमारे दरवाजे पे खड़ी है और हमें अपने आप को, अपने सोसाइटी को, जो भी कोविड एप्रोप्रिएट बिहेवियरल प्रोटोकॉल्स हैं वो फॉलो करना चाहिए। और उसके लिए एक शेर है हमारे पास कि जो चाहते हो चिरागों को हम सफर रखना, जरा हवा के इरादों पे भी नजर रखना। मीन्स अगर हम सब लोग ये चाहते हैं कि हमारी लाइफ जो सस्टेनेबल तरीके से मेन स्ट्रीम पे आ गई है वो अगर सस्टेनेबल रहे, तो जो कोविड के इरादे हैं उस पे नजर रखना पड़ेगा और कोविड एप्रोप्रिएट बिहेवियर फॉलो करना पड़ेगा, नहीं तो सब डिसरप्ट हो जाएगा। तो शेर है कि जो चाहते हो चिरागों को हम सफर रखना, जरा हवा के मीन्स कोविड के इरादों पे भी नजर रखना। अब उजड़ गए हो तो ये शिकायतें कैसी, कहा था किसने कि तूफान की जद पे रहना। किसने कहा था कि बिना मास्क के मार्केट में जाएं पब्लिक प्लेस पे और हर दिन बाहर जाकर खाएं और फिर कहें कि कोविड मेरे घर में आ गया है। So let's take all precaution and wish you a very happy and safe stay and be vibrant in terms of learning. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. Great, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
With that, then we have the permission to leave the session.
Oh yes, please. Oh yes.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
And dear participants,
Okay,
this
thank
meeting
you.
room is converted into a facilitation center where Dr. Ritika, Mr. Manish, all of them are here to take care of your certification. And once you get certificate, then only leave this meeting room, because we will not be in a position to help you out at any other platform, maybe WhatsApp, maybe email, maybe phone call, or maybe SMS. Only this meeting room is a platform where your grievances, your queries can be resolved. If you are not getting certificate instantly after filling the feedback form, please write your mail ID and your name in the chat window addressed to all the panelists, and the team members here will be taking care of that why and because of which reason you are not getting certificate. They will track your certificate, will give you the link where from you can download it. If you leave the meeting room and keep us contacting us on other platforms, sorry, we will not be in a position to help you out. So do fill your feedback form, generate certificate, and do also download the coffee book, which is made available for you till 10 p.m. today. And there are other webinars which has already been notified. So on the same link where you will be going to download the coffee book, you may get the link of other webinars on which you may click and register yourself. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, sir. And thank you so much, dear participants. I can already see that the number of my participants is going down. The feedback link has already been shared in the chat window. I hope all the participants have submitted the feedback form. Please ensure that you submit the feedback form, because until and unless you do not submit the feedback form, your certificate of participation will not be generated. So dear participants, please click on the feedback form, fill in your details carefully and submit the same. You make a mistake in the details while filling your details, you will have a wrong certificate, and then using the same email ID, you cannot refill the feedback form. So please be careful by filling the feedback form. To ensure fast generation of your certificates, please fill and submit the feedback form at the earliest possible. Any participant who do not receive their certificate of participation after filling and submitting the feedback form till 5 minutes, if you don't receive it in your inbox, you can share your email ID with all the panelists in the chat window. We are there to help you out with your certificate of participation, but first kindly fill the feedback form. The feedback form link has already been shared multiple times in the chat window by Professor M.N. Huda sir and my colleague Dr. Manish with the BVI CAM name. So if you are unable to find the feedback form link, you can simply click on the chat window. On the option chat with all panelists, you can either click on Professor M.N. Huda sir name or BVI CAM New Delhi name, and you will find the feedback form link as well as the link to download the CIO coffee table book. My number of participants is going down. Once you receive your certificate of participation, dear participants, you are most welcome to acknowledge and leave this meeting room. Our next webinar is planned next week on next Saturday on another upcoming technology. Kindly register for the same and ensure that you participate in the same. Akarshak Behel sir, you have not filled the feedback form. Kindly fill the feedback form. I can see last few participants are left. Rest all participants have already got their certificate of participation. Over 200 certificates have already been successfully generated, dear participants. So all the participants who are left, I hope they are just waiting for their certificate of participation. They have already filled the feedback form. The feedback form link has been shared in the chat window. In the chat window, you can click on the option chat with all panelists, and over there you can either click on Professor Emin Huda sir name or BVI Camp New Delhi. You will find the feedback form link. I can see last 69 participants left. I hope all the participants have already filled the feedback form and submitted the same. The certificate shall be mailed into your inbox, the same inbox which email ID you have filled the feedback in the feedback form. So kindly refresh your inbox. If you are attending this webinar for the first time, you may also check your spam folder. And if the certificate has been delivered in the spam folder, I request you kindly ensure that you mark it as not spam, so that next time onwards, it is not delivered in the spam folder. It is instead delivered into your inbox. Dear participants, the feedback form link has already been shared in the chat window multiple times. I hope all of you, all the leftover participants have already clicked on the same. Until and unless you fill and submit the feedback form, we will not be able to help you with your certificate of participation. So dear participants, please kindly click and submit the feedback form. Dear participants, I can see last 51 participants are left. I hope all of you have already submitted the feedback form and are only waiting for your certificate of participation. We have Akarshak Behel, Ajay Kumar, Almara Khatun, Aniket Dhamanya, Ankit Kumar, Aryaman, Boya Siva, Daria Khan, Dr. Kudappa, Dr. Harshvardhan, Dr. Sharad, Dr. Suryakanta, E.R. Santosh, G. Bhattacharya, Gur Iqbal, Gurpreet Barar, Impana Appaji, Ishan Bhasin, Kamlesh Shah, Kote Kavita, Mamila Rajakir, Mamta Ghalan, Manglesh, Manjula, Mrunal, Parul, PM Javandhia, Prashasti, Professor Dr. Nand, Dr. Rajiv, Professor R. Selvaraj, Rajashekar, Rohini, S. Chitra, Sai Siva, Sanjay Behel sir, Sheikh Shoaib, Shweta, Saurabh, Subin, Valan Arsaju, Vidya Hasija, Virendra Kumar, Vivekananda, and Zahid Sheikh. I hope all these participants have already submitted their feedback form and are only waiting for their certificate of participation. Mani sir, I think we can start calculating which participants' feedback form has not been received. We have last 42 participants left. I hope all these participants are only waiting for their certificate of participation. They have already filled their feedback form. We have Akarshak Behel, Ajay Kumar, Almara Khatun, Aniket Dhamanya, Aryaman, Boya Siva, Dr. Kudappa, Dr. Harshvardhan, Dr. Sharad Sharma, Dr. Sharad Dr. Suryakanta, Santosh, G. Bhattacharya, Gur Iqbal, Gurpreet Barar, Impanna, Ishan Bhasin, Kamlesh Shaw, Kote Kavita, Mamila, Manglesh, Manjula, Mrinal, Parul Singla, PM Javandhia, Prashasti, Dr. Rajiv, R. Selvaraj, Rajashekar, S. Chitra, Sai Siva, Sanjay Behel sir, Shweta, Saurabh, Suvin, Valan Arasu, Vidya Hasija, Virendra Kumar, Vivekananda, and Zahid Sheikh. I hope all these participants are only waiting for their certificate of participation. Dear participants, once you receive your certificate of participation, you are most welcome to leave this meeting room. We hope to welcome you again next week with our next webinar on another important upcoming technology. dear participants, we have the list of all the participants whose feedback form has not been received and thus their certificate could not be generated. Only 5 participants are such whose feedback form could not be received and thus their certificate could not be generated. Rest all certificates have been successfully generated. Almara Khatun, Aniket, Harshvardhan, Sharad Goyal and Dr. Suryakanta. These are the only 5 participants whose certificates could not be generated because their feedback form was not received. Rest all certificates have been successfully generated and delivered in the inbox of the participants. So if these 5 participants are still there with us, I request them kindly fill your certificate feedback form and submit the same so that your certificate can be generated. Almara Khatun, Aniket, Harshvardhan, Sharad Goyal, and Dr. Suryakanta. If you are still there with us, please fill in your certificate feedback form and submit the same so that your certificate can be generated in a timely manner.
Dr. Ritika,
Yes, sir. Yes,
we
sir.
will close this room by 7:50. So please announce accordingly.
Okay, sir.
9 more minutes.
Okay, sir. Dear participants, last 5 participants whose certificate could not be generated because their feedback form was not received. If these participants are still there with us, I request them kindly fill in your feedback form and submit the same so that your certificates can be generated. I repeat the names: Almara Khatun, Aniket, Arshvardhan, Sharad Goyal, and Dr. Suryakanta. If they are still there with us, please submit your feedback form so that your certificates can be generated. It's 7:42. We shall be closing this room in another 8 minutes. Once the room is closed, obviously we will not be there to help you out. So Almara Khatun, Aniket, Harshvardhan, Sharad Goyal, and Dr. Suryakanta. If you are still there with us, kindly submit the feedback form and generate your certificate of participation. In a few minutes from now, we shall be closing this room. I am giving the last call to the leftover 5 participants whose certificates could not be generated. Almara Khatun, Aniket, Harshvardhan, Sharad Goyal, and Dr. Suryakanta. If they are still there with us, please submit the feedback form so that your certificates can be generated. Dear participants, last call to 5 participants whose certificates could not be generated because their feedback form has not been received. Almara Khatun, Aniket, Harshvardhan, Sharad Goyal, and Dr. Suryakanta. If you are still there with us, Please submit the feedback form so that your certificate of participation can be generated. We are closing this room in another 5 minutes from now. So please submit your feedback form at the earliest. Dear participants, we shall be closing this room in 3 minutes from now. So this is the last call to 5 participants, Almara Khatun, Aniket, Harshvardhan, Sharad Goyal, and Dr. Suryakanta. If you are still there with us, please fill in your feedback form and submit the same so that your certificate of participation can be successfully generated. Last 2 minutes, I again give a last reminder call to 5 participants, Almara Khatun, Aniket, Harshvardhan, Sharad Goyal, and Dr. Suryakanta. If you are still there with us, please fill in the feedback form and generate your certificate of participation. Certificate of participation for all other candidates all other participants have been successfully generated. Only these 5 participants are left whose certificates could not be generated because their feedback form was not received. Due to technical issues, if you have been disconnected and you are still there with us, please fill in the feedback form and submit the same so that your certificate of participation can be generated soon. We are closing this room in another 1 minute from now. So can we
Got it.
close the room now?
Yeah. Please close the room.
Okay, sir.
Thank you so much to everyone. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night, sir. Thank you so much, dear participants. Our next webinar is planned next Saturday on another upcoming technology. Kindly ensure you register for the same and become a member of the same. Thank you so much. Good night, dear participants. Take care. Manisa, we can close the room. Good night. Take care.